Hey guys, my name is Drew Dixon. Welcome to my Allusion presentation over Tiresias. So the story of Tiresias was a soothsayer from Greek mythology. A soothsayer is someone who can see into the future and tells the truth and gives prophecies out to other people. So one time he was walking on Mount Silan and he came by some snakes who were mating, and he messed with the snakes and he was hitting them with a stick, and the goddess Hera was extremely displeased, and so she turned him into a woman for 7 years. And the reason why this only lasted 7 years and not the rest of his life was because he was again walking on Mount Silan and he came into snakes mating again 7 years later. And this time he left them alone and just walked by them. And for this, Hera was pleased and he had his masculinity returned to him. So there's two parts of the story of Tiresias, which are both alluded to commonly. And the second part of this has two possible stories on why Tiresias was blinded. The first story is that Tiresias walks in on Athena while she is bathing, and Athena was regarded as one of the most beautiful goddesses, and this blinds Tiresias just from the sight of her, and she's also extremely mad at him, and so she like actually blinds him for real. And his mother was a nymph for Athena, and she tries her best to plead his case with her, and she decides that okay, maybe she overreacted, but she can't undo the blindness. She can only clean his ears so that he could hear what animals are saying, and also so that he could hear into the future, and that's how he got his foresight. Now, the second possible story for this was that Hera and Zeus were arguing one time, and they called in Tiresias, and the reason why they called Tiresias in was because they were arguing over whether a woman or a man had more pleasure while they were having sex, and Tiresias would have been a great person to call on for this because he had experienced both as a man and a woman. And Tiresias agrees with Zeus and says that the man only enjoys one part of the sex compared to a woman, and for this Hera is angry and strikes his sight, and so he can no longer see. Zeus feels bad and repays Tiresias with foresight and 7 lives so he can see into the future. So some clues that you can see that a Tiresias illusion is present is a lot of times where it's a transgender or a transsexual, then that's when you're noticing that, okay, this might be alluding to Tiresias. A complex mediation between two things or people similar to what happened between Zeus and Hera, or also when Tiresias is a mediator between people and gods when he's telling them foresight that he sees. If you see a blinded male, Tiresias was blind. Someone who sees the future, Tiresias was a soothsayer, so he could see into the future. A wise old man, kind of the same thing, but the blinded male and someone who sees the future, it's just who he was. When you hear prophecies, someone preaching a prophecy that maybe someone is reluctant to adhere to, that's also a clue to a Tiresias illusion. Anytime you see a woman bathing or someone walking in a woman bathing, that's similar to what happened with him and Athena, or a couple of people that are arguing and looking to a third party to help mediate between them. Some lessons to learn from Tiresias, the story of him, is don't bother someone who isn't bothering you, just like he had to pay for the consequences that he was messing with those snakes, and he was then turned into a woman because of that. Always be cautious of which side you take. You don't want to be blinded as he was when he took the side of Zeus from Hera. And water always finds its level. So this is kind of saying that, like, just because your consequence is really bad, like when he was blinded by Hera or by Athena for doing something that maybe was an accident in the case of Athena, or that he was just answering the question as he was told to in the case of Zeus and Hera. And so the water finds its level, meaning that he still got the sight of the foresight and 7 more lives after his sight was taken away. So in essence, it was almost an even trade. And then life is worth living no matter what troubles you face. That's kind of the lesson you can learn from seeing that Tiresias was a blind old man, and he also was turned into a woman for 7 years, but he still lived his life and enjoyed it. He lived very long. One illusion that we can see in modern day is the French film Tiresias. So this film is obviously an allusion to Tiresias, just you can tell from the name. And also, the main character is a transsexual, which is when someone is one gender, but they also act as the other gender and back and forth. It's not really like you just make a full switch. And then an admirer who admires this transsexual kidnapped her and takes her to the forest, but without the girl Tiresias having her normal hormones that she injects into herself so that she can act more like a woman and less like a male. She becomes more and more like a male gradually. This really frustrates the kidnapper because he was in love with her because of how much of both ways she was, and as she becomes more of a male, the kidnapper just isn't as interested with her, and so the kidnapper blinds her and leaves her to die in the woods. And just like Tiresias, she would eventually be repaid for this. She was cared for a rural family that lived out in those woods, and soonly after she was blinded, she received the gift of premonition, which is basically just knowing what's going to happen before it happens. Not really seeing to the future like Tiresias did, but very similar. She was given a gift of knowing the future after she was blinded. And here's my sources. Thank you for listening.